Good morning. Good morning. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Nice to talk to you again.
Yes,
It's been a while.
about a month or something like that, hasn't it?
Yeah. So how have you been?
Sure. I'm loving the shirt. It's very very summer holiday.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's actually getting really hot already in Japan, so I don't think you have that problem in England.
no, but I live in I live in a more warmer part of the UK.
Ah, okay.
So it's much more sunny here and things. But yeah, generally speaking, we don't have that that problem.
Yeah, today it was hot out actually. The sun was shining. Lovely day. I did some kobudo or martial arts, and
Nice.
so that was nice.
What where are you in Japan? What part of Japan are you?
I'm in Tokyo.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a suburb of Tokyo, so it's kind of out in the western half of Tokyo. The largest city in the world, I believe it still is, in terms of population.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I believe it
I
though,
think
because
so.
it does seem to be very densely
Yes,
populated
there's a
when you
lot
see,
of people.
yeah, and the small
Yeah,
sort of domicile, you know what I mean? The small
right.
apartments, yeah, kind of necessity. You have to, yeah.
Exactly. So, to dive in, I guess you want to discuss the questions regarding the transformed, what we call the
Yeah,
transformed land.
transform lands, yeah.
But um, but before we go there, I want to ask, is anything on your mind, or did you think about some of the things we talked about last time, if we can remember? And then do you have any other questions that are pressing that you want to discuss, or?
No, I think that what I realized that I messaged you about was a pretty big shift in my thinking.
Right, right. Yeah. So
That
let's talk
somehow
about that a little bit.
true doesn't really matter how it's true. And that combined with how, with the conclusion I came to during that session of the problem isn't what the teaching is saying or what the Dharma masters have said. The problem is what's observing that. The problem is my mind. The problem is what my mind is doing with it. What my mind is doing, not the Dharma, not the teaching about these things. Um, and to just have some flexibility, combined with that and that shift of just, what, it's true
Mm,
somehow. Doesn't really matter how it's true. Do you know what I mean? The particulars of how it's true. Um, I can just trust that it's true and not have to. And the rest of that's just calculation, really, isn't it? It's just monkey mind calculating about. So I don't need, and that's part of the problem. That's the problem. It's part of
exactly.
and and that plus, and then that brought me back to when you told me about how Aiken Kobai Sensei says, you know, there's the when it was talking about I can't remember what it was referring to when he says that there's the religious there's a
Mm,
religious sensibility and then there's a scientific sensibility and you can't really and they're two different things, they're just different things
right,
and
right.
and then that combines with what teachings I've heard about or discussion I've heard about the Dharma where science is you know science can't figure out enlightenment. Science can't like
Right, right.
figure out the Buddha. Science can't it because science is based in samsara. Science is this is it's part of, then this is a conclusion I came to too. It's science is part
Mm.
of, comes from the minds of people in samsara, unenlightened beings. And it's good for what it is. I'm not saying it's not, it's a
Mm.
bad thing, but it's kind of like, it's samsara based. So it can't remotely
Transcend. It can't.
yeah,
It can't transcend the
yeah,
world of observation, which
yeah,
is what science is intended for, right? So, like you said, it's a method of observation for discovering the truth, or let's not even say the truth. Let's say discovering things about the
something.
world, because I think
There's
I
something.
don't.
It's like that one
Yeah.
scientist said, something is doing something we don't know what. when he was
Yeah.
talking,
Exactly.
when he talked about quantum physics, spooky
Mm.
motion distance or something, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he said, "Well, something is doing. Oh yeah, no, something is doing. We don't know what." That was the quote. And that to me,
Yeah.
that's the best you can do, really, with science.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's exactly right. These science, we have to remember, is limited by our perception. It's a amazing. I mean, it's an amazing tool. It's incredible the advances we've made in so many fields due to modern science. I mean, there's no question, right? Um, but at the end of the day, um, when you're looking for meaning and truth, and this is where like the new atheists, like Richard Dawkins, for example, kind of go off the rails when they try to discuss epistemological questions and the philosophy behind science,
Yeah.
because that the philosophy actually precedes the scientific method, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, what can we know?
And
What
quote
does
unquote
science tell
informs it.
us? Exactly, yeah. What does science tell us about? Well, it tells us how the world is put together to a degree, right? It tells us things about cause and effect, and in this, um, you know, so it's a way of measuring samsara. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
a samsaric enterprise rather than a dharmic enterprise.
Exactly. But it
And
doesn't mean
we,
that I have to throw it out. It just
no,
means
no, no,
it has its purpose
right.
in samsara. It has its purpose in the world, and it fulfills that purpose. But it really can't really have a dharmic purpose. It
Mm,
just doesn't really. It's doing something
yeah.
else.
And I do think that, the scientific method can be brought to bear on, the study of religion, for example, and the whole academic, we can uncover a lot of interesting things, right? But at the end of the day, when you're looking for meaning and you're searching for truth, science is only going to get you so far, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because early Buddhism, well up until Mahayana Buddhism and even beyond, was a very scientific. Um, as you know, of course, the Abhidharma texts, right, is a vast compendium of um, theories and observations about the world. A lot of it, of course, is things that are being inferred. But when I was in university, I took a class on Indian philosophy, and we covered Buddhist philosophy as part of Indian philosophy, and the theories of Buddhist atomism, the atomic theory that the Buddhist model had developed was, you know, very comparable in a lot of ways to, Greek atomism or the Greek
Yeah.
atomic theory.
Lucretius. Yeah, and that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. and it's fascinating stuff. Now,
But there is some theory
do
that
we?
Buddhism
Mm,
massively influenced the Greek, a lot of the Greek
yeah,
philosophers. Yeah,
could be because there was
as well as the art and culture. But
right.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
but
because
it
in
never kind of got
Greek,
credit, sort of somehow.
yeah, yeah. If you go to some museums, I know Tokyo National Museum is a good one. Um, you'll see a lot of Greco-Buddhist art, some really, including the very, very famous Gandharan statue of Shakyamuni.
Yeah,
And he's wearing, you can see from the way the robes are draped and the face, it's a Greek interpretation.
yeah,
Some are even like kind of picture Shakyamuni as like this young sort of heroic figure, who looks very Greek. I mean,
like
it's
one of the
it's
titans.
striking,
Yeah.
right?
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and but yeah, going back to the scientific question, so and there was a lot of the Buddhist world and the whole explosion of knowledge and inquiry that grew out of Shakyamuni's enlightenment and teachings continued for centuries and in India. And but at the end of the day, and this is what Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, the first of our our Pure Land masters, and of course, he was also, one of the most famous Buddhist philosophers, right? But he, really critiqued the previous Buddhist thought, or what is called the smaller vehicle, or it was the prevalent, Buddhism of the day, really. But he really critiqued, how much can all of this lead us to an understanding of the truth, because Mahayana Buddhism was very practical and focused on, enlightenment, becoming a Buddha, right? And Nagarjuna was, skeptical of all of all this theorizing and, ideas that in different schools didn't agree on some things, and so on and so forth. And so, the verses on the middle way is kind of a real critique of a lot of things that Buddhists at the time thought this is Buddhist teaching, cause and effect, and all of this, right? So, and of course, that's a advanced text for people beyond, with a capacity beyond yours and mine. But and at the end of the
Yeah,
day, we have to remember that Nagarjuna, all of his philosophy and so on, he also took refuge in Amida
yeah,
Buddha, right?
exactly. Ultimately, yeah, that was one of the things
Yeah.
that blew my mind when I was first listening to Paul Roberts
Mm.
videos. In one of his videos, he talks about that at some point, even Nagarjuna, who is like, a bodhisattva, said, "You know what? I'm just going to trust to Amida." You know,
Yeah.
not like we would give up. And I'm sure it was a different, his, but even still, and I was like, wow, that's so.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah. Who do I?
Yeah, the verses in praise of Amida and that Nagarjuna wrote, the hymns are, a very beautiful and powerful expression of, taking refuge in Amida Buddha, the Amitabha or Amitayas, uh, the ultimate Buddha, the the teacher of the teachers, as it were, So,
Yeah.
um,
So anyway,
now
yeah.
going let's go back a little bit to
Yeah,
the flexibility. Like you said, yes, you don't have to throw out the science, right? I mean, this, in fact, that can get dangerous. People get,
yeah, yeah,
go too
yeah.
far, and I'm
And,
not going
and
to believe in science,
one
but
one quick thing about it is, for me,
mm,
science is one of the things that um, pointed me towards spirituality, certain types, you
mm,
know what I mean, and filtered out certain others, you know.
yeah,
Um, so, I think if you look deeply enough at science, if you really take it to its, any discipline,
mm,
to its minutest, as far as you can take it, it kind of does point in the direction of the teachings of Buddhism. Do you know what I mean? About
mm,
dependent origination,
definitely,
impermanence, no self.
yeah,
If you really think of the implications of science, and that's one of the things that I was like, oh, okay, that's you know, that's pretty much what Buddhism says, But
right,
anyway, so
yeah.
you know,
There are amazing
it
parallels.
can't figure it out, but it for me that's what is a is something, a function that it did serve. So
Mm,
there was an aspect of it's not, you know what I mean.
hmm
It can't figure out the Pure Land. It can't figure out enlightenment. It can't prove the
right,
Buddha. It can't what Buddha nature in But
mm,
for me, some of the basic teachings about this reality, the samsara, was like, yeah, that it kind of does point
mm,
toward the nature of it. So anyway, so that's
yeah. Yeah, and like Kobai Sensei said, there's the religious dimension, the spiritual
yeah,
dimension that kind of transcends, a mere scientific worldview. And, that's what we're really talking about here. How is the existence of the Pure Land or the existence of the Mita Buddha, confirmed or proven? And according to, Kobai Sensei, uh, you know we can't like prove it scientifically, but it's a truth that is to be experienced, right? So that's the experiential aspect, I think, of religion is really important. Scott, are you still there? It
yeah.
looks
You know
like we
what?
may have
We
frozen.
should, yeah. One sec. Just go off camera for a second. Just go to the audio. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think it.
Sometimes, what we'll do is when we're talking,
Mm,
go on camera or not, and when we're not talking,
ah,
because
okay.
I think with the two are two different. There's not enough bandwidth at the moment or whatever. So
Oh,
when
okay.
when
I
it goes like that, we'll
understood.
just.
Yeah.
Can you hear me though? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
So yeah, go
Can
ahead.
you see me now? Is
I can
is
see you and
can
I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
Okay, okay, great. Um, yeah. So what I was just saying there was the experiential aspect of the Buddha Dharma is something we have to always really keep in mind. It's not a just a mere dry scientific method of discovering things about reality. It's a path of liberation, not just for ourselves but also for all living beings. So this is a very important point. The spiritual dimension, the transcendent aspect, I would call it. The Dharma aspect of Buddhism is very important. There are some, secular Buddhists and so on who try to demystify Buddhism and turn it into like a scientific dogma, and that is a
Yeah.
huge mistake, a real tragedy, in my opinion, is that people are getting swept up in that sort of impoverished and warped view of Buddhism. It's kind of unfortunate. Now, I mean, hopefully they move on to something more substantial, but you know, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
But okay, so well, let's talk about your question. So I think you have a question about the land of indolence and
Yeah.
pride and
Yeah.
the womb
Just,
palace and so on and so forth. So
yeah. One of my questions about it is all those different,
mm,
you know, um, the womb palace, the land of pride and insolence. What was it?
yeah,
The,
indolence and pride, sloth. I've heard it translated the land of pride and sloth.
yeah. Yeah. There's that. Um, and there's other things too that are all, and just then there's things it just calls the borderlands,
Mm,
the transformed land, right? Is that one of the
right.
um
Yes.
and then there's the 9 grades of lotuses, where instead of just, so the teaching in Jodo Shinshu, I believe, is that if you have faith from Amida, if you
Mm,
accept that, if you have that faith, then when you die and you're born in Pure Land, you're immediately in an open lotus and immediately become a Buddha. Yeah. And then there's these
mm,
9 grades,
yes.
but so where some of them you won't, it'll be partially, it won't open at all, but you'll be in there, and there's this
Right.
whole world in there that you know, but you're in the Pure Land. It's all
Mm,
you're all in the Pure Land with all of this stuff. But
mm.
and I've heard that basically they're all the same thing. I've heard, is that right? The teaching is
Right.
that
Yeah, that's basically
actually
correct.
yeah, if you make it into Pure Land, to the Borderlands, all these different descriptions of these different things are the same thing.
Mm,
Um, and you're in Pure Land, but it's because you don't have full faith. You had some faith and some self power kind of
mm,
going on.
right.
And do you my one of my questions is with that is it a matter, like, can someone, like, let's say someone has who accept, just doesn't do any other practices, but listening deeply and says
Mm,
Nembutsu, and and wishes to be born in the land, and what I mean, works with a
mm,
teacher, or whatever, and they don't ever have that full diamond like Shinshin, but they haven't. Is it kind of like you could have enough to get there? You don't have to do any,
mm,
or to be born in the Borderlands, any of these things, you actually do have to do some kind of self power combined with having some faith. Do you see what I mean?
mm. Yeah, yeah.
Or is it just, well, you don't have enough faith, but that'll get you at least to the Borderland, even if you're not doing any self power, even if you're not doing anything
Right.
else? Do you see what I mean?
Mm,
That just
yes.
That's one of my questions. Yeah, which, and then that's, you can see the ultimate question that I have is, the
Yeah,
old,
maybe I
can I get in that way, and then eventually, you know
mm,
even if it takes me
yes.
really a long time and it's a really hard thing, at least I'm there,
Right.
type of thing.
Well, there's a lot of dimensions to this question. And I'll do my best to try to uh address the issues that are here. And well, first you said, well, let's start with Shinran Shonin distinguishes between um, based on the teaching of the seven Pure Land masters. He distinguishes between the fulfilled land and the transformed land or lands. And essentially, the fulfilled land refers to the pure land that is specifically fulfilled through um, the vows of light and life, which are the same vows that Amida Buddha vowed that his life would be unlimited and that his light would be infinite, right? And those same vows, Shinran Shonin, clearly tells us are also the source of the Pure Land. So when Shinran is talking about the fulfilled land, or Hodo, it's referring to the land fulfilled by those vows, and Shinran Shonin refers to it as the land of inconceivable light, right? And of course, we know that light is synonymous or means wisdom, right? So that is what Shinran is talking about when he discusses the fulfilled land, right? Now, you might ask, what is the nature, what is the qualities of this land that is fulfilled by the vow? And to answer that question, I'm going to go off screen a bit, and let's go ahead and look in Kyogyo Shinsho, and see if I can bring this up here. And okay, and this is in the chapter on the true Buddha and the true land. And what Shinran Shonin means by the true Buddha and land is the Buddha and land that are fulfilled through the working of Dharmakara's vows. And so I'm going to read a bit from Kyogyo Shinsho. So Shinran Shonin says, reverently contemplating the true Buddha and the true land, I find that the Buddha is the Tathagata of inconceivable light, and that the land also is the land of immeasurable light. Because they have arisen through the fulfillment of vows of great compassion, they are called the true fulfilled Buddha and land. And there are relevant vows that were made, the vows of light and of life. And of course, the vow of light, he's referring to Amida's Dharmakara's vow that when he attains Buddhahood, his light will not be limited to any degree. And by life, he's referring to the vow that his life be infinite, right?
Yeah.
And then if we go on and sort of go to the end of this same chapter, of course, there's a lot in this chapter, but he refers to, concerning the true Buddha, the larger sutra states, Buddha of boundless light, Buddha of unhindered light. Further, Amida is the king among Buddhas, the most revered among lights. And concerning the true land, the larger sutra states, land of immeasurable light and land of all-knowing wisdom. So it's basically the same meaning there, right? And then the treatise on the Pure Land states, it is infinite, like space, vast and boundless. So when we're talking about the true Pure Land is infinite, like space, vast and boundless. In other words, the true Pure Land has no, we can't really conceive, of infinity, right? Because our minds are so limited, right? So this is what Shinran Shonin means when he's talking about the fulfilled land, and he says that the beings of the Tathagata's pure lotus are born transformed from the lotus of perfect enlightenment, for they are the same in practicing the Nimbutsu and follow no other way. And this is where it gets a little tricky. You have to remember that the true birth in the true fulfilled land is called transformed birth. But birth in the transformed land is not called transformed birth. So it gets a bit, the terminology is.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's a bit tricky to remember. But birth by transformation refers to birth from the lotus of the Tathagata's perfect enlightenment, right? And Shenron Chonin refers to this as non-jiki ojo, or birth that is inconceivable, because we simply can't wrap our minds around it. You know,
Yeah.
we can't conceptualize and especially when the larger sutra states, you know, if you ask what kind of existence, you know, do we have in the Pure Land, it says all who are born in the Pure Land receive the body of naturalness or of emptiness, the body of boundlessness. So this is beyond what we can conceive of. And because of that, it's referred to as birth that is inconceivable. And so far, so good, right? Do you have any question or comment on the
No.
concept of the fulfilled land?
That's pretty clear. It's kind of like, you know, self-power Buddhism is, I'm born pretty much through the power of my own mind, if you can say my own mind, but and whereas, you know, enlightenment through Amida is through Amida's mind, kind of. Anyway.
Yes, exactly. And Amida's mind, of course, is working on us through the name, right, and the vow. So it's really birth through the vow power, which is the working of the vow, which is the same as other power, right? And so, to go back to your earlier question, you made an really important distinction. Can I have enough faith to be born in the fulfilled land, right? Like, I have 99% faith, but there's that one little bit of doubt, right?
Yeah.
And the answer is a hard answer, but the answer in Jodo Shinshu is no. To be born in the fulfilled land, it has to be
I think I might have misspoken then about my question. My question is not, I know you can, unless you have, you know, diamond like Shinjin, you cannot be born in the fulfilled land. I said if what my distinction was, it was about the transformed land, the Borderland.
Okay.
Question was, if I have like some faith,
right,
is that enough to at least get me there? You see what I mean? Without doing any other self-power practices. Do you see? As long as I have some faith, maybe part of it's self, you know, I'm saying Nembutsu with self-power or whatever, but not, you just say, I mean, not with it, without any other practices, self-power practices outside, you know, would a partial faith without any self-power practices get me at least into the Borderland? That was the question. Yeah, sorry, but continue with your train of thought though, because I'm still learning.
Thanks for clarifying, and that actually is perfect, because it leads right into the next topic, which is what is the Borderland, the Womb Palace, the land of sloth and pride. And what we have to remember is when it comes to all of these things essentially have the same meaning, right? And this is the transformed Pure Land. And there's a sense in which this transformed land is also the product, right, of Amida's vows, because Amida also vowed the 19th and the 20th vows,
Right.
which are referred to birth in the Pure Land, right?
Mhm.
But there's another passage that I want to share with you, and let's see. Okay. Here it is, and I think this kind of refers to your question, which is, you know, is it easier or is it a better way to be born in the Pure Land, to try to be born in the transformed land, and then, you know, after the 500 years or whatever amount of time, be
Yeah.
born in the real Pure Land? Like, can I
Yeah.
shortcut,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And there's a so I think I understand correctly, like, where your question is coming from. Is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that kind of the where your
It,
question is coming from?
yeah. Sort of. It's like I at least continue with Jodo Shinshu for the rest of this life
Mm,
to whatever, you know, and if I don't ever have full adamantine diamond like unshakable
mm,
Shinjin,
mm.
if I have some faith, you know, by just, you know what I mean? If I have a certain degree of faith or a certain amount of trusting,
Mm.
without really doing anything else than
Mm.
what Jodo Shinshu teachings talk about doing. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
Then
right.
not, because the 19th and 20th vow kind of seem like they indicate where you kind of have to do some other things besides just have partial faith. You have to kind of have some kind of, do you see what I mean?
Right.
Achieve.
Yeah, they say you have to, like, plant roots of good and do
Yeah.
good deeds
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, right?
But if I don't do that, and I just have partial
Right.
faith, could I still get into the borderline? That's kind of the
Mm.
question. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's listen
Keep going
here
though. Keep going
to
though. Yeah, keep.
yeah. No, I exactly. So your question is a great question. And in the Essentials for Attaining Worth, or Ojo Yoshu by Ginshin, he quotes a passage. It's kind of interesting. It's from the Sutra of the Bodhisattva's dwelling in the womb, classically too. And this passage states, in the Western Quarter, 20 kotis of Nayutas from this Jambudvipa continent is the realm of indolence and pride. Sentient beings who have awakened aspiration and desire to be born in Amida's Buddha's land are all deeply attached to the land of indolence and pride, and cannot advance to birth in Amida's land. At times, only one of millions upon millions of beings is able to attain birth in Amida's land. So, what this passage is saying is essentially, people who are born in the transformed land um, have a hard time going on to be born in the true fulfilled land, right?
Yeah.
Um, and why is that? It's because we are confining. We're kind of, so Shinron, when we're talking about the transformed land, he really uses kind of the image of it being like a gilded cage, a, a
Yes.
jeweled. It's a beautiful palace, but it's also kind of a prison, you know.
Yeah. It's
Um,
kind of. Is it described in Tanishu, or did I hear someone? I may have heard
mm,
um, teachers talking about it this way, but does it say in Tanishu? It's kind of like use the analogy of it's like a gilded, it's like a, for
Mm.
princes who violate
Yes, yes.
law, or they wouldn't be thrown into prison, but they'd be confined in the palace, like almost house arrest, you know,
Right, exactly. That is
until they
the
learn their lesson.
analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's really so that's the analogy is of a prince who is, he's not going to be thrown in like the deepest, darkest dungeon, but
yeah,
they're going to
not to
be
be
like,
in maximum, security.
uh, right.
Anyway, yeah.
Um, but so what, I think what are we being taught here? It's that um, we are sort of trapped in self power, because it seems like something that's a good thing. I'm doing it on my own. I'm able to do this, to be born in the land through my faith or my saying the Nimbutsu, and we sort of like have that self power attitude, right? But we end up in a place where we actually are um, sort of closing our minds almost, as it were, to the the important truth of the absolute other power working of Amida's vow, right? The primal vow. And so in Jodo Shinshu, we are really discouraged from pursuing uh, birth in the transformed land. And
Mm-hmm.
because the whole purpose of the 19th and 20th vows is to lead people to the 18th vow,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a it's a provisional means. The transformed land is a provisional expedient to lead people to the 18th vow. So if we are sitting here, we've encountered Jodo Shinshu, the true teaching of the Pure
Yeah.
Land. We're learning about the primal vow. We don't need to um, pursue birth in the transformed formed land, because we already have the 18th vow. We're learning about it right now. We're hearing it. So, Shinron's recommendation for you and me is really to pursue birth in the fulfilled land, the true meaning of all of this, of the Pure Land path, is to liberate us, not just in the future, like not just after we die, and this is important in Jodo Shinshu, is but to in some sense free us from our reliance on the ego in our own power in this life as well. And that is what the purpose of the Nimbutsu is to uh, awaken us to other power, the working of Amida's power,
Yeah.
and the primal vow. And so, to I guess to answer your question, um, in Jodo Shinshu, right? And I can't necessarily speak for Jodo Shu, but I think it's more or less the same. In Jodo Shinshu, in Shinron Shonin's teaching, we really are kind of, you know, birth in the transformed land is not um,
Yeah.
the recommended path.
Yeah.
There's no point where Shinron Shonin says, well, the way of the 20th of the 18th vow is really the best, but if you're not capable of that, then you should, you can try to be born in the transformed land. On the contrary, um, and I wonder if it's in this passage here. Let me see if I can I believe it's Shantao Zindo Daishi, the Chinese master,
Yep.
who said, if you receive birth in the transformed land, you must definitely reject it. So
That's so
that's
Buddhist.
pretty.
That's anyway. Sorry.
Yeah, you've got to say no thanks. That's a pretty, strong statement.
It
But
is.
what he's saying is that, the how to put it, the transformed land is not the goal. So the goal is the fulfilled land. And so if you're going down that path, you're kind of going down the wrong path in a sense. Now, of course, it is a provisional means. It is a thing that is intended to bring people from these self-power schools of Buddhism, from those people who rely on self-power. It's intended to bring them into the ocean of the vow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you're already pursuing the Pure Land path, if you're already on this path, then to go and try to think, to calculate and say, well, maybe I can, be born in the Pure Land, the transformed land, through doing good things once in a while and saying the Nimbutsu as my own practice. You're going in the wrong direction, so to speak. It's like going the wrong way down a one-way street. The oncoming traffic is supposed to be from the provisional vows to the primal vow, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's
So
I'd never heard that
yeah.
about Chantal saying that. I kind of see, of all of the Chinese Dharma masters, he does seem to be like the big daddy, as it were.
Yeah, definitely.
That doesn't sound very reverent to say that, but he's like the big,
the big kahuna.
Big kahuna. Yeah, exactly. And he,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
he, even that say, I never heard that he said, if you receive birth in the borderland or in the transformed land, you should reject it. It's almost like the Zen saying of, if you see the Buddha on the road, kill him. Yeah, it's like the other power equivalent of the self power. Like the self power thing would be, if you see the Buddha on the path, kill it. If and the other power, thought would be, if you receive birth in the borderland or transform land, you should reject it. No, anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never heard that before. And I see that, to have any other goal is pointless. And there's different interpretations of, like, there's other schools of Buddhism would interpret. They take the 18th, 19th, and 20th vows as almost like one, like a set, or 17th through the 17th through the 20th vows as kind of a set. They're not separate things.
Yeah.
Like, so you have to have, you know what I mean? You need to be trying to do all.
Right. If you don't do good works, then you can't be born in the Pure Land, kind of thing.
All that kind of. Whereas I could see, in Jodo Shinshu, it's very, this is 18th vow is what you're,
right.
Is the guiding, sort of principle, if you could put it that way, of all of Jodo Shinshu. There isn't any, Shinjin is everything in this path. Didn't Shinran or Honen say in this path that Shinjin is everything, or something along that line. Faith is.
Um, Not exactly that.
Mm,
It's actually Rinyo, I believe, who says that
that's
in
right.
our school, he says Shinjin is fundamental, or Shinjin
Essential.
is like the key the key to
Well,
Jodo Shinshu.
it's kind of
But
in the
yeah, I mean it
it's
is
kind of in the
everything.
name of the school of Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu, the essential
Right.
teachings of,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, of, yeah,
Yeah.
faith. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's kind of in that.
Now, one thing you brought up that I think is really just now is the well, the idea, the other interpretations, of course. And but in the larger sutra, it's written there in the larger sutra. It says that those who are born in the transformed land, or the womb-like birth, it's called. Or there's a lot of terminology gets kind of confusing, but let's try to keep it all together here. They plant roots of good, and so they're doing good deeds, they're stacking up merits, they're doing this stuff to be born in the Pale Land, but they doubt the Buddha's inconceivable wisdom. So in the inconceivable wisdom here refers to the vow, right? Amita's mind to save us. They doubt that wisdom, but they plant roots of good and do all of these other things. So they achieve. They're not transformed birth. They're born in the womb palace. It's called. So that is the distinguishing thing is not having reliance on other power, but through your own self-willed efforts, doing good things, and thinking, if I make enough merit, I can be born in the Pure Land, right? And of course, Jodo Shinshu, Shinran Shonin, we know is very critical of the idea of you and I doing good that can be a result that can result in birth in the true Pure Land. Um, I think I want to say it's maybe Bodhisattva, not Nagarjuna, but I can only remember the Japanese for some reason. Tenjin Bosatsu. No, Bodhisattva Vasubandhu,
Yeah.
the second Pure Land master, said, I fear that it is difficult to be born there through ordinary good, he says, in the Pure Land. It's difficult. It's, you really can't be born in the Pure Land through ordinary good. And people think like, I'm doing good things and then I can transfer that merit to Pure Land. But the critical, one of Shinran's critical insights here is the good that the Tathagata Amida does is really on a different level than the good that human beings do, right? Because when we do good things, it's to some degree, kind of tainted by our ego, our self-interest. We give money to a charity, for example, and think, oh, what a good boy am I? I gave money to. And when you read in Buddhism, I mean, when bodhisattvas are benefiting beings, they do not give rise to this ego, this
Yeah.
selfish, and especially important when in the larger sutra it talks about, and I think we discussed this passage before, when Dharmakara Bodhisattva was practicing to fulfill his vows, and it describes the good, he never gave rise to a thought of greed or anger or, frustration. He benefited all beings with a smile, and it's describing the good that is coming from the Tathagata. And Shinran really says, this good is not something that human beings are ordinarily capable of. It's a really a whole nother level, so to speak. So in that sense,
beyond even like other pure lands. So other pure lands, like you have to do enormous, heroic, extraordinary things to get there.
Yeah.
And his Amitas is beyond that. It's beyond all combined.
Right. It surpasses all the Pure Lands, and yet it is the one that is intended for people like you and me.
Yeah.
Unenlightened, ordinary, can't, put one foot in front of the other, spiritually speaking. Through the name and the vow power. Anyone, can be born in Amita's Pure Land. And this was a point of contention. Shantou had to correct the scholars of his time who were saying, Amita's Pure Land is way too lofty and too hard to get to for ordinary beings like you and me. It's really the people who are actually born in the fulfilled land are, people, advanced Mahayana practitioners and bodhisattvas.
Yeah, exactly.
And Shantou said, no. The fulfilled land can be reached by people who trust to Amita's vow, because, and this is what he said, it's going there through the vow, the power of the vow. So this was a huge shift in Buddhism generally, but Pure Land Buddhism in particular. Shandao, like you said, he's the the big kahuna, the great teacher of Pure Land Buddhism, generally speaking, and Jodo Shinshu in particular. So I've been talking a lot.
Yes.
So now I'd like to hear,
because it kind of, to answer my question, you really needed to
and so did that help? Did that address some of your questions, or is there things do you have any questions or thoughts?
I think it did. The only aspect of it that I don't know if it did, and maybe it should have, but if I did, I missed it, is that and this is still the can I get in there, but if you have just some faith, doing no good, not doing any other practices other than what is taught in Jodo Shinshu, listening deeply, reflecting deeply, listening deeply, entrusting to the best of your ability, that you can until, whatever. And then in saying the Butsu, and just, you have partial faith, and you just, without doing any other meditative practices or any kind of precepts or any kind of anything other than those things, can you get in there? And it, for me, from the way I've read it and what we talked about today, the answer still is no. Because
it's the sutra does say, or the teachings say, that those who are born in the fulfilled land, or those who are born in the transformed land, are many, and those who are born in the fulfilled land are very few.
Oh yeah, so I mean, that's true. Yeah, And I can see why, because it is the greatest of all difficult. It is the difficulty of all difficulties. I have to say, the whole Shinjin aspect of Jodo
Right.
Shinshu.
Yeah, and it's a
be able
reason
to
why I
trust,
think it is.
and I can see why you have to be enabled to entrust. You have to be enabled to have that kind of faith. You have to be. I couldn't have that myself.
Yeah, well,
My own
right,
my
right,
own power, I would not be able to have that.
right.
That's the conclusion I've come to. It's of my
Well,
own.
that conclusion is a crucial insight. That is, the really important.
Yeah. So I can see why there's few in the fulfilled land, but there can't be that many. If you need to do, if you need to have, if you need to do, if there's some kind of, if you have to keep precepts or paramitas or, or meditative practices or anything like that to also, along with some amount of faith to get in there, then it can't be that many that get there that way. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's. Do you see do you see the distinction?
Oh,
of my?
yeah.
Can it just be partial faith and nothing else? What if I have just enough partial to get me? Is that enough to see what I mean? To get in there? And I know that's not the goal. I'm saying, what I'm saying is, I know the goal. I know the goal is fulfilled land. I know the goal. I know the 18th vow is everything. Shinjin is everything. That's what the teaching is about. That's why you're deeply listening, to become open to, like, that. It's all toward that. But what if by the time I die, I don't?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I see.
I have enough.
Right.
Without doing anything.
Is there
else.
like a safety net?
Yeah. Is it like is there a degree of yeah. So,
well, I asked that question pretty much exactly how you just stated it to Kobai sensei.
Okay. Yourself.
And
from your own, when you were, was this yourself or on my behalf?
On your behalf. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's also a question that I think anyone who is interested in Jodo Shinshu is going to have, right? And Kobai sensei's answer, which I don't think you're going to like very much, but I have to give you his answer. His answer was, he pointed to the passage that Shinran, states in the beginning of Kyogyo Shinsho, which says, if in this lifetime we do not awaken true faith, then necessarily we must pass again through endless rounds of birth and death in the cycle of, samsara. So that's
that definitive.
The definitive answer.
I needed that. I can't have any loopholes, and that was a loophole until just now.
And now the loophole is closed.
It's gone. That right. At least that one is that loophole is now gone to me. That's
good.
Yeah, that's what I needed to hear. I think we need to discuss all this other stuff as well. Everything, the whole picture of the Borderland to get that. And now, so that's very clear. That is something